Good morning. That was a surprising welcome. Now I feel like a star. So, Agile leadership, right? So I wait until the people sit down to actually ask you in a very few moments to do some short experiment. But it would not work with the people walking, so in the meantime, I just say something about myself, right, until you sit down. So I am Zuzi Sochova, I'm from Prague, Czech Republic. I work as an Agile coach and trainer, and I'm kind of a world traveler. I love traveling, so I'm usually in multiple continents in a month. Kind of fun. And now I end up being here in this wonderful country, actually speaking at 3 conferences in 2 weeks. Isn't that fun? All right, now we are ready for the experiment. So can you please all stand up? Wonderful. Now imagine the organization of your dreams in your mind. How it looks like, how it feels. The organization where you work. And if it's a very different picture, you can sit down. No one? A few people, okay, seems to be very happy at your work. Now, if it's close to it, but not exactly it, there is still something missing, you can sit down. Now, most of the people are sitting, but we have about 5 standing, 6. Hey, you're working in the organization of your dreams. You can sit down now. Congratulations. Now, I tell you a story about myself, about the organization which I changed a couple years ago. And it started in 2010, one summer afternoon, when I was given 3 departments of testers, developers, and hardware guys, with a goal to build some highly collaborative, flexible space which would be able to bring a lot of collaboration, innovation, creativity. And so I went home, and I didn't expect it at all. It was actually quite a surprise to get 3 departments. Wow. So my feeling was like, hey, I can finally change the world. I can do whatever I can. I can finally make it happen. All those things I've been complaining about. And then it got back to me. And I visualized those 120 people coming to my office every day, asking all of those questions. What should I do? Can you give me a promotion? What do I need to do to get a salary raise? Can you approve my holiday? And I felt like tired. Just can't imagine that. I would not be able to do anything. So I was slowly getting down, thinking about, I just give up. You know, I don't have to fight the system all the time. Just build a hierarchical structure with all those managers in it, and it's solved. I went to sleep. The next day brought a new light and a new energy. So I finally got the courage to present next week at the executive meeting my way of doing it, based off self-organizing teams and no management. And I tell you a little bit about our chairman. He was a old guy, about his 60s, short, no hairs, kind of a bigger body, speaking low voice, always wearing a suit, very formal. I think he's got a hierarchy hard-coded in his DNA. And he gives the impression that he is always right, so you don't argue with him. Next week, I was ready with my presentation for the executive meeting. He's been clearly in a good mood, sitting in front of a table, joking with everyone. And then he started the meeting, saying, all right, let's hear about the engineering structure. We are all about to know who are going to be your managers. Yes, sure, I'm just starting my presentation. I just put my laptop in and, Oh my God, managers. I don't have any managers in. Wow, wow. All right. So, you asked me to present my own vision of how I want to structure this new department. But before I do that, let me tell you, refresh the goal. What do we want to achieve by that change? So we want to get a high flexibility with a high collaboration, creativity, innovation, technical excellence. Is that correct?
Correct.
Ah. Thank you. Good. So I did the research. And, check the similar-minded companies, how they operate, how they work. And I came up with a very flat structure based on the self-organizing teams and no management in it. No management. Yes, no management, because no management is actually enabler of this highly flexible structure. And I believe that if we make it more agile, we're going to be more successful with it. So you want to make it agile, huh? Yes, agile, because let's try it. After all, that's the reason why we choose you, because you're gonna bring the change. We need to change this organization to be more modern, more innovative, more. And the meeting continues. I still have no clue why, at that time, he said yes to my crazy idea, because it was against his nature. He's been fighting with it mentally through all 2 years we've been building it. But I think the reason is my first tip for you, that I link it back to the strategic goals. That I didn't really say, hey, we have to implement Agile because I like it. I didn't say we have to implement Agile because everybody is speaking about Agile. I said, well, we need to achieve something, high flexibility, creativity, innovations. We can't do it now. We are failing to satisfy our customers. I have a recipe how to do that. So Agile is not your goal. It's just the way. And I, for myself, say the best way, because I am the biggest Agile enthusiast all around. So the best way, how to achieve your goals. Keep it that way. But don't change your way of working just because somebody said so. So a little bit how it looks like when you transform something, right? So there's a traditional structure, the hierarchical thing, right? You have a manager and manager of manager and manager and manager, and somewhere there below the employees. And then the change start. So you form some bubbles of agility, team spirit. You start iterate. You have those servant leaders. You bring the self-organization in. And the more of those yellow things you build there, the more of those different mindset things you create, the highest disconnect is happening in your organization, where you have those managers completely disconnected from those teams, so you create a gap. And those managers start looking at that and saying, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I used to be a very effective leader in the traditional organization. I knew how to motivate my guys. I knew how to choose them. I knew how to help them to be successful. And today, I don't know what to do. They might not say it to those employees there, but they are often saying it to people like me who are out of scope. So this is like a washing machine. It's really hard because they don't have the same world. They are living a different values. And it's faster and faster and faster, and it's difficult. So the chairman I've been speaking about before, he's been very often going back and saying like, hey, but who is responsible? I was like, the team is. No, the team can't be responsible. Who is responsible? So my second answer was me. No, you can't be responsible for everything here. But actually, legally, I am, right? From a legal perspective, eventually I am responsible. And by the way, eventually you are responsible as a CEO/chairman. But I didn't say that. But, so there's the disconnect. He just didn't get it. He's been struggling with it. He kind of liked what he see. He liked those smiley faces. He liked that we deliver more, by the way. He liked that our customers are happy. But he disliked this kind of feeling like who is responsible. And then how to get out from that washing machine, right? That's my second tip, that leaders need to change first. Now I go back to that term, leaders. It's not managers. Because leadership is a state of mind. Every one of you is a leader. And the only thing which is dividing you from being a leader is your decision. I'm going to be a leader, and I'm taking over the responsibility. And I'm willing to take that risk. Or not. Up to you. But those leaders, emergent leaders, need to change first. And they are actually responsible for the organization to follow them. And once they make it happen, it clicks. And those yellow dots kind of go to the same place as those black dots, and it's again a quiet space after the storm. So that's the Agile organization, collaborative, creative, and adaptive network. Sometimes when people ask me, how would you describe it? I say it's a living organism. It's something which constantly changes. But it has a one purpose, one mission, one same direction. They know where they're going to. But if they realize, hey, it's too cold, they might go back, take something warm on and return, right? Living organism with a kind of a distributed brain network. So that's what we are creating with Agile organizations. Now, who is responsible? In a way, everyone. There is no hierarchical structure exist anymore. So how it looks inside. That's my culture model. It's a kind of a clam, right? That kind of a creature which is living deep in the sea and moving like that. It has two parts. If you split them from each other, the organization dies. The same as that clam. So it's a good model. If you put them too far from each other, it's not convenient. If you close it, not good either. So it's kind of constantly moving and inspecting and adapting. Those two parts are the structure and the mindset. The structure are all those hard things like strategy and tactics and power and structure and decision-making process, and also those position and rewards, how much salary we give away, and if we pay any bonus or not. And then those rules and governance and metrics and politics and processes. It's a soil. So if you make it too tight and too strict, nothing will grow from it on the other side of a mindset. If you make it too weak, it might get chaos. So you need a balance of those two. The mindset is more about the behavior of our beliefs. What are our values? The responsibility, the self-awareness. But also, in the middle of that star is actually critical for any Agile organization, that network structure. That's the purpose. We need to know where are we going. It's like a star, because you never achieve it, you can't touch it. But you can go closer, it kind of shows you where to go. This way or that way. Evolutionary purpose. Have one goal altogether. And finally, you know, that's the trust and collaboration and self-organization and all those things that we love each other or things like that, right? So if there is a disconnect and disbalance, it's broken, the entire organization. So you have to make it right. But on the other hand, it's constantly changing. It's never fixed. It's kind of living creature inside the living organism. So when you start talking about those things for the leadership, I do nowadays a lot of the executive coaching, leadership classes. I started my own Agile leadership program recently. So those leaders, they feel like they have a square out of their head and can feel like, I like it, but what shall I do? How can I make it happen eventually, right? Because it's so different from whatever we've been used to. How do self-organizing teams really working? How can we make it work? Okay, one team, 8 people, I can imagine that. Maybe they can't, but they believed so. But how can we make it scaling at the organization of 10,000 people across 3 continents and 10 different countries? Well, it's hard. That's not going to happen over time. But the answer is leadership. Garden the right leadership. And we talk about it. It's not a management with, I'm senior manager and I'm a vice president, I'm bigger. But it's about mindset, state of mind. Am I willing to come up with my own ideas and stand for them and take over the responsibility for that experiment or not? And this is a model which is quite useful because it shows you in the central piece is a system. The system, that's the organization. That's the network. Constantly moving somewhere, constantly changing. You can't describe it because at the moment you describe it, it's changed and it's different. It has certain rules and values which might be stable. But in a way, it's not stable anymore. So the first part of this is the get awareness over there on top, where the leaders need to learn how to work with that system, how to be able to listen for their voices, how they can deal with that complexity, how they can learn how to feel the energy, frustration, angriness, happiness, all those things. How they can look for indicators. Once they learn that, they are ready to move to the next level, which is embrace it. Finally, it's okay, that's us. We thought we are something else, but actually, we are not. Too bad. But maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's actually a good thing. Maybe that because we are so different, it can allow us to do, and there's a starting point of that energy, to move to the third one, act upon, which is okay, so how can I influence as a leader this system? How can I make them to do something differently? Click. Click. Right? Like that. Not big changes like, hey, today we are starting Agile transformation. Not like that. Just a small, tiny things. One question here, one question there. Once you do that and feel comfortable about this, you go back to get awareness and see what happened. Interesting. Am I okay with it? Am I able to accept it? Don't judge. And then tap it again. If you start enjoying it, you're going to be a good Agile leader because it's all about this mindset. If you feel it needs to be predictable and described and defined, don't go work into Agile organization because it's not defined. So another metaphor for our system point of view is actually this kind of observation tower. So you imagine yourself as a leader. What my chairman said one day, he said, as a leader, you are always alone. And I think he's been right. Because you stand on that observation tower, looking at the other people and trying to figure out, like, what do I see? And listen to the voices of a system, which there are 3 rules. First of all, be open to any voice, anywhere. Whatever you hear, whatever you see, whatever you feel, get it. Then the second rule says, who knows what is right and what is not? Because who knows? something which feels like a really bad thing from this perspective is actually a good thing from that perspective. The issue which we got on production last week seems like quite horrible. But actually, because of that, we learn that we need to do things a little bit differently to prevent those things. So we actually don't lose that much money. So it was not a bad thing. It was actually a good thing because we learn, and it prevents us from some bigger disaster in the future. So who knows if it's right and wrong? That's a typical thing for complex world. Because complex world is not predictable. You can't say if it's right or wrong because it has so many different perspectives. So it's impossible to judge. So one step to become a good Agile leader is like, accept this. Don't judge it. It's not bad or wrong. It's just happening. That's the embracing, right? And finally, the third one, that's the positivity in it. That everyone is right, but only partially. So there is a 2% of truth in every perspective. And if you learn to hear it and see it and feel it, you're eventually going to be quite happy with this constantly moving thing. Now get to the competencies. What is it all about? To make it a little bit more tangible from this visual, psychological thing. So as a good Agile leader, you must have a vision. Where are we going with this organization, with this department? If you don't have it, it's a chaos. That's the evolutionary purpose. You have to be able to put it there, the star on the horizon. And it's part of the motivation, because if you put the right vision in, the people just start following you. Say, hey, can I work for you? Do you need some help? Can I help you somehow? What can I do? And I was thinking, I start doing this. This kind of motivation, which is intrinsic, it's coming from internal belief that this is the right thing. The third one in that section is a feedback. And a lot of the leaders, they are good, well, they feel they are good at giving feedback. We may argue about that. But how many times you been getting a feedback from your peers, or as a manager from your employees? How many times you changed based on that feedback? How many times you even ask to get it? Or did you just usually say something like, I disagree with that, I do it my way anyway? So the feedback is two parts, to give it, but also to receive it. Then on this side, that side, it's kind of upside down here, I don't know, that's weird. On that side, it's about decision-making process. Sometimes in Agile, people believe that there is no one who says, this is the way. But as a leader, you have to do it. That's part of the passion, that's part of the passion. Sometimes you just have to decide. And sometimes, in traditional way, we say you decide or you delegate. In Agile, we say you decide or you collaborate. You work with the other people together on achieving something. So collaboration. Are you able to do it with others? And there are two tools which helps you to do that. It's a coaching and facilitation, both soft skills. It's not about you anymore, it's about the other people. And finally, the last segment is about a change. Change of yourself. You need to change first. And do things differently. And be consistent and stand for it. Because if you're not, if you're speaking, hey, we all need to collaborate, and then you never collaborate, people will not follow. So the biggest difficult, at least for me, the change is changing myself. Then changing through the other people. You may coach the teams, you may create the teams, you may help them to work differently. And finally, change the entire system, the organization, how it's structured. There's a story from the beginning that what I did, because I really feel the system should work differently. The third thing, there is a good book. It's called Reinventing Organizations. And it said that there are those red, amber, orange structures, which are very fixed structures, traditional ones. You either have a hierarchy or a matrix, all those things. They're not wrong. They're just not getting well with any agile, self-organizational things. So there is a line covering between to the green and teal. The green on the top is not that fixed structure anymore, but it's actually still defined. A good example would be Spotify, right? With those squads and tribes. It's defined structure based on self-organization, but still defined. So usually people have a good kind of feeling they understand it, at least a bit. So therefore, for example, Czech Republic, all the banks are now applying Spotify so-called model. They want to be agile, that's still imaginable. Now there is another one. That's a teal organization. It's a liquid structure. It's a completely flat organization with no management, really. And emergent leadership coming up. It's like a flotilla of a boat which by itself are going to the same goal, to achieve the same purpose. But they don't have a centralized captain. They don't have a centralized decision-making process. So those two are quite a good inspirational for you if you want to move somewhere, to change the structure. After all, my tip number 3, your role is to help others to become leaders, to support this kind of a we collaborative culture. And if you can do it, the organization will be kind of healthy. Another tip over there, that's the book called Turn the Ship Around. It's written by David Marquette, a captain of the US Navy, of a nuclear submarine. And he actually make a quiet turnaround of the way they work on that submarine. Quite interesting reading. And he described 2 ways of leadership. The one, on a very traditional way, is the leader-follower. Those are those red organizations, orange organizations, right? Who has a fixed structure. There is a manager decides. Of course, part of the decision is to delegate. On the other side, you have this leader, the peer kind of partnership, where there is no one who naturally decides. Anyone can come up with their own idea. And with all the responsibility of all the consequences, sometimes make a decision. And very often people say, it's not possible, it will not work. Well, therefore I show this book, read it, how they did it on a nuclear submarine. I can't imagine worse environment to transform for this type of work. So leader. How can you help people around yourself so they become leaders? So they come up with their own ideas, so they come up with their initiatives and say, hey, I want this. Do you want to join me? And then say, oh, okay, maybe it was not a good idea, so we try to improve it or we do something else. And next time there is someone else fixing some other problem, some other ideas, and trying to do that. This book is quite interesting because I think, unless he has to, he would never change. It was so difficult. So it starts with a story that if you want to be a captain of this type of submarine, you have to go through 2 years education to learn every single detail about that specific type of submarine. 1.5 years from the beginning, when he was almost there, they told him, oh, sorry, David, we changed your mind, and you're going to go, not to the most modern submarine you've been trained for, but you're going to go to the oldest one. We need you to fix it. We have quite demotivated crowd there, and etc. So you go there. He was like, but I don't know anything about it, right? So what shall I do? Hey, you still have half a year. You still got 6 months. So use them. I said, okay, well, usually you learn 2 years for a specific type. I got 6 months, so he did the best he could and learn as much as he can. The first day he showed up at that submarine, right? He gave the first order. You stay in the control room. The first officer next to you say, hey, turn the switch A, or something like that. I'm not an expert on this. And the officer said, turn the switch A. And then finally, eventually, that person staying in the control room says, turn the switch A, and do nothing. So he said, like, why didn't you do anything, officer? He said, like, sorry, sir, but there is no switch A exist. Did you know that? Yes, sir. Why didn't you say anything? You give us an order. So we follow. So that was the initial story, which kind of forced him to change, because he said, okay, I'm going here. In 1 month, I'm going to be here, not for a test, but for real. So I need to change something. And he's been trained in this way of different leadership. So he decided to try it. And in this book, he described how difficult it is. How many times they failed something or were close to disaster. But actually they made it. And in a couple years, they've been from the most demotivated, worst submarine in the Navy, been the best. With the most amount of people promoted to the higher level leadership. And now he is pretty much traveling the world, going around all those countries and speaking about his experience. And interesting story. If he can make it in a US Navy submarine, I'm quite sure you can do it in your companies. Your brain, yourself, is the only enemy for you. All you need to do is to make a decision. Back to my 3 tips, right? Agile by itself is not your goal. It's just the way how to achieve your goals. That's a ground. If you break it, I don't think you're going to make it, because there is lack of the purpose, lack of the reason why we go through that painful journey. Leaders means you need to change first. You are the people who allows it. So stop complaining that your organizations might not be that great, and step up and change it. And help others to become leaders. Help them to have this team spirit, this collaboration, this emergent leadership, and support this we culture. 3 things. Finally, a little bit about the book I wrote. It's called The Great Scrum Master, but it's pretty much a guidebook for all who want to improve their organizations from those culture perspective. A lot of those models I've been speaking about here are described there. If you want to know more, let me know. I've got a couple copies with me. And you can connect with me. I'll be more than happy if you join me in the speaker's corner over there to have a chat about anything you want to know, preferably about Agile, because I don't know anything else much. And, enjoy the rest of the conference.